things we have to work out. But I am concerned about the classification circumstances and the inability of all of your various agencies to understand what the problems are. INS, for example, needs to see who is on a list of people who should not be coming into the United States of America. And if for some reason or another that isn't cleared fast enough to get to them, then that is a problem. I don't have the answer to this. I don't have precise, defined knowledge on exactly what the problem is. But as I talk to experts, they usually come to the same conclusion that we need to do something about it. I'm interested in any brief comments any of you may have about that particular subject. No, it's a general subject, and I don't expect you all to have the answers. And I don't know, Governor Gilmore or anybody else, if you actually looked into it and the work that you've been doing, but I'd be interested in your comments on that.
Congressman, are you asking what would facilitate information sharing, or are you concerned about the amount of time it takes to get cleared?
I'm asking essentially if you agree that there is a lack of information going into any of you and the various agencies that you run, and is part of the cause of this the issue of classification of intelligence at too high a level, so you don't get information which really could be made more public, if you will, which would help you in your job. Plus, it stymies you in terms of bureaucracy to get that done. That's fundamentally what I'm asking. But anybody can answer it. I didn't mean to pick on you.
I'm going to make one brief analytical comment, and I think that the agencies themselves would have more practical response. But you know, what kind of setup do we presently have? What kind of culture does it exist within? And it is, if you get sensitive information, you get it from a sensitive source, then all of the pressures are against disclosure. You might make a mistake. You might disclose something to someone who doesn't have a need to know. There's no system in place to make that kind of decision. So the tendency, I think, is to err on the side of caution and not give information, as opposed to a culture that would say, no, actually, we need to get this information into the hands of the police commissioner in Baltimore.
And that's correct. And if that's the case, should we be doing something about it? Should the intelligence community be cutting this more sharply than they are now? Would that help in terms of the information which is needed out there?
Well, there just needs to be a different attitude about getting information out to the right people. Governors, for example, don't get this information. I don't recall getting any intelligence in the 4 years that I was governor of Virginia of any kind, on any threat of any kind whatsoever. You know, I suppose that perhaps there was some low-level information from time to time to our state police and so on like that, but in terms of high-level threats against the Commonwealth, it just wasn't there, and there's no setup for it to be there.
Well, there may be more set up now that we have the Homeland Security and we're dealing with the local police agencies more. Any other comments?
Well, I agree with you, because one of the things that's been frustrating for us is in the case I disclosed before, I talked to, we work on the same person. The explanation was certain things they can't tell us because we weren't cleared. And while that may be true, that shouldn't be the case. Because number one, is incredibly dangerous. We both work on the same people with undercovers, you know, throughout the city. Second of all, that just should not be the case. And you know, it's either an excuse, or if it's a fact, it needs to be an obstacle that's overcome. And frankly, just to touch on Congressman and address yours, when the threat is specific, you don't even need a clearance in many cases, because we got something once when anthrax was right at the time. It was very hot last year. There was a direct threat to Baltimore. It came from overseas. The FBI called me immediately. In a specific threat case like that, I didn't need to know the source or methods. I didn't need a clearance. It just told me there's a threat, 1:15 today. You're going to be attacked with anthrax. It came from, I can't tell you where. But with that little bit of information, we were able to protect ourselves. And that's all we need, frankly. And that's what, look, so I mean, this, you know, you're absolutely right. You could either declassify things, don't stamp them at the highest level, or speed up the clearances of people that need them, if that's the case.
Just a quick comment. From the INS perspective, the issue that you raised, Congressman, is very dear in terms of the kind of action that we can take with respect to people who are on lookouts. If the name is in the lookout system because it's based on classified information, and that person is taken into the INS administrative law system and processed for deportation, then in order for us to do anything other than handle it as a routine immigration case, which would allow them to be entitled to bail, allow them to be able to leave the country voluntarily, and all of those benefits that attend to that, it's dependent on declassifying the material upon which the lookout is based and being able to use that in this administrative law forum. And of course, that's very difficult. especially if there is, depending on the sources and methods used. So we find ourselves frequently caught in a dilemma where we have someone who we suspect really does pose a threat to the United States, and yet because of the level of classification and because of the unwillingness to declassify that stuff in a manner that allows us to use it in the public forum, in the administrative forum, we have to treat it like every other immigration case. And I think what happened in Baltimore recently is an example of that.
I assume I can't see the lights, which is just wonderful. So I assume my time is up because I can't see them. I didn't know that for sure. And I would just like to say, Mr. Chairman, just in closing, if we're going to deal with 700,000 local police or law enforcement officials, it just seems to me that we need to look at the whole broader system of what we're doing with intelligence in this country if we really expect that help. And I hope it is something that we as a group will look at.
Thank you.